Forza Horizon 5's auction house is a place where dreams come true. A place where you can find the car of your dreams for incredibly cheap, or a place where you can sell cars you didn't even know you had for millions and millions of credits. Now, this has always been the case in Forza. For well over a decade now, players have been making these transactions on the auction house for little to no problems. But one day, all of that changed. Now, to figure out what went wrong in the auction house, we have to travel back in time about 1.5 years to November 6th, 2022. This day started much like any other. I was scrolling through my YouTube channel's comments, replying to some, hearting others, when I came across a strange comment. Now, comments similar to this one were not entirely uncommon, of people claiming to have found something game-breaking in Forza, hoping for attention, only for it to end up being something we already knew existed. However, this comment was different. The individual was not claiming to have come up with a method, nor were they seeking any credit for it. Rather, they were guiding me to another individual's YouTube page, suggesting I check it out for myself. So I typed in the channel known as Oi Avogadro and went to see what this was all about. And what I found was a relatively small channel with just a few thousand subscribers. At the top of his page was a video posted the day before claiming to be an AFK money glitch that would get you 200 million credits in just 30 minutes. Now, in terms of what we had for money glitches, this was pretty insane. It was groundbreaking. Never before had we even had a glitch that would fetch 10 million credits in that amount of time. So I booted up Forza and went to check it out for myself. Now, what the glitch required was the player to load up an event that at the time of my testing only had a couple hundred uses, which would be extremely low if this was an actual working glitch. My expectations were on the floor, but I stood to lose basically nothing as it was only 30 minutes of my time. And how the event worked was you loaded into a challenge style event in the Koenigsegg Jesko. And what you had to do was drive forward onto a concrete tube, balance your front tires off the ramp into the tube, and hold down on your e-brake. Now, what this did was trick the game into thinking you were holding the same burnout for 30 minutes, which racked up quite a score. Now, the only important part of this entire event was that you actually completed the danger sign jump in time before the event finished. This way, it counted to a completion and you actually ended up getting your reward. So that's what I did. I followed the steps, taped down my emergency brake, and went away for 30 minutes. When I returned, I was entirely shocked. The event had worked. I gained 200 million credits immediately upon my completion of the event, and there was no extra steps. Never before had I seen anything remotely close to this in a Forza game, let alone working. So I did what any other content creator would do. I immediately recorded a video on it and uploaded it to YouTube, then hit the hay. The next day, I woke up to a lot of notifications. Overnight, tens of thousands of people had seen the tutorial, and it was beginning to go viral. People were telling their friends, TikToks were being made about it, and the absolutely game-breaking glitch was spreading like wildfire. The event itself was picking up hundreds and thousands of plays on Forza, which pushed it to the front of the weekly community tab. And this made it so even more people were seeing it. It was honestly kind of cool, seeing the community rally together for once. Players that hadn't been able to get certain cars or complete their collections finally had the financial freedom to do so. And this went on for a few more days, while updated versions of the event came out that allowed for even more profit, and players that hadn't touched the game since its initial release were drawn back because you could kind of do anything you wanted to in the game now. Now, with all this going on and players reaching financial freedom in just hours of owning the game, you can be certain the developers were not doing so good. This was a problem unlike anything they had ever faced before. Every single player that touched the game was doing this event, and that meant nobody could get banned for it. That is, unless they wanted to ban every single one of their players, which no company wants to do. So a solution to this problem was gonna take some time for them to find, and in the meantime, the Forza community was gonna enjoy this. Back in Forza, however, things were starting to take a bit of a turn. A once overflowing auction house with hundreds of thousands of cars on it, it suddenly went dry. You couldn't find a single car for sale anywhere under any category. And when you sit back to think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. When money becomes no object, they need to start finding other objects to bring in to satisfy themselves. And the problem with that being is there's not an infinite amount of cars to go around, even though there was an infinite supply of money. The great news about that was I had many cars I had been planning on getting rid of for a long time, and now I could just post them all and know they would sell. And figuring something would happen to the money, I figured it would be nice to have a stockpile of cars I could collect the money from as Forza's lifespan went on. Well, after a couple days of the auction house being in this state, Forza completely shut it down. For the first time ever in a Forza Horizon history, you couldn't sell the cars you own to other players. And Forza declared it was going to remain this way for a few days until they were able to come up with some sort of solution to hopefully set things back to the way they were. So, for the next few days, things just kind of went quiet. Then, one morning, Forza made an announcement about their solution, and let me tell you, players were not gonna be happy. Now, fortunately, they did announce that no players were gonna receive a ban, which was kinda good news for the whole community. But that's not to say that action wasn't gonna be taken on people's accounts. What Forza announced for their solution was two things. The first thing they were gonna do was reset all the players who had played the event's accounts back a few weeks to before they ever actually did them. So essentially, if you did any progress in those 2 weeks, it was taken back, but we kinda deserved it. So no one was really too upset about that. The second thing they did was significantly worse. Now at first it didn't sound as bad. All they were doing was just resetting the auction house. Car prices that shouldn't have been 20 million had somehow gotten there, so they were just bringing every car's price back down to the minimum it was, allowing it to naturally increase again. So cars that were rare, selling for 20 million credits, were no longer selling for 20 million credits, but still incredibly rare, making hard to get cars even harder to get. So essentially, until these cars would release again, it was going to be impossible to get your hands on them. So today, almost 2 years after this has happened, we're still facing the consequences. Some cars' prices have never fully returned to what they once were, and players who did the glitch and got every single car in the game did what they wanted to do and see no point in returning. I honestly can't say it was entirely worth it at the end of the day. And often I do wonder what the state of Forza would look like had I never posted that glitch. That being said, it's kind of cool to say that I was the spark that completely broke Forza. I feel like nobody else can say that. But anyways, boys, that is gonna do it for this video. If you enjoyed this style, let me know down below with a couple likes. Let's see if we can get to 500. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. As always, we'll see you in the next one. I'm out. Peace.